Darkness surrounded the station orbiting Epsilon 4. It was just another quiet day for the crew. They were scientists, engineers, and farmers, not soldiers. The colony had been growing for 3 years now. Kids played in the domes. Families planted crops in artificial soil. Laughter filled the air every evening. To them, war was just something in old stories. But then, the silence came. A soft hum from the beacon station went dead. One moment it was sending its regular ping to Earth. The next moment, nothing. No sound. No data. Just cold, empty space. Earth Command noticed it immediately. Alarms didn't go off. The system didn't panic. But inside the main room of the United Earth Defense Council, something changed. General Ilara moved fast. She was known for acting before most even understood the danger. She stared at the blinking red dot on the screen, the last location of the colony's signal. It stopped mid-transmission. But what caught her attention was the final audio clip. It was broken, static-filled, but one line was clear. "They're here. They're killing us." The words cut through the silence like a knife. No enemy had ever dared attack a human colony since the last Galactic Peace Accord. No species would be that bold, unless they were certain Earth wouldn't fight back. But Earth remembered. A decision had to be made fast. No public statement. No news leaks. Just a single command to launch a stealth reconnaissance ship, Ghostlight 7. No weapons, just sensors, just eyes. The pilot of the ship was Lieutenant Aaron Vale, a man with nerves like steel and a sharp mind. He didn't ask questions. He followed orders and he flew alone. His ship vanished into the stars, quiet like a shadow. As he traveled across light years of space, Earth waited. Days passed. No word from the colony. No word from the scout. Families started to whisper. Something felt wrong. Children asked, "Why can't we call them anymore?" But adults stayed silent. A girl named Lyra, only 6 years old, kept asking about her father. He worked in the agricultural zone of Epsilon 4. Every night she placed a small toy near the window and said, "He'll see it from the sky and come home." Her mother wiped tears silently behind her back. Meanwhile, Aaron reached orbit. What he saw turned his blood cold. The planet below was burned, not fully destroyed but deeply scarred. Fires still burned in certain areas. The main colony dome was shattered, its pieces floating in orbit. Fields once green were black. He tried to scan for life signs. Nothing. He sent a report back. "Colony is gone. No survivors detected. Investigating further. Evidence of heavy weapon use. Non-human origin. Awaiting orders." He flew lower. His ship stayed cloaked. He entered the colony wreckage slowly, careful not to disturb what was left. Inside the command center, he found something. A recording device, cracked but still functional. He played the last message from the colony leader. "If anyone hears this, we were attacked without warning. They destroyed the children's dome first. No mercy. We tried to send a signal, but the comms were jammed. We didn't even see them coming. They wore black armor. No symbols. Just cold red eyes. They killed everyone, and then they celebrated." The message ended. Aaron's hands clenched. His face hardened. There were no tears, just silence. He transmitted everything to Earth. It didn't take long for the council to meet. Leaders from across the planet sat around a long table. Some were shocked. Others were angry. But all agreed on one thing. This was no accident. Data from the recording was analyzed quickly. The armor, the weapons, the tactics, all matched one species, the Varnock. The Varnock were known to be powerful, prideful, and dangerous. But until now they kept to their own side of the galaxy. They called humans soft, weak, emotional, creatures of chaos. But now, they had acted, and they had made a terrible mistake. The room fell silent as General Ilara stood. Her voice was calm but sharp like a blade. "They thought killing our friends was a victory," she said. "They celebrated it. But Earth does not forget, and Earth does not forgive. The vote was unanimous. Preparations for a classified operation began. No broadcasts, no threats, no warnings, the public still didn't know. But in the heart of Earth's military command, a plan was forming. Back on Epsilon 4, Aaron continued his investigation. He found symbols scorched into walls, Varnock war marks. He found bones, scorched metal, torn flags. But most of all, he found silence. Then he found something else, a message. Not from the humans, but from the Varnock themselves. It was left on a damaged console, translated by Earth's auto system. The message was short. Let this be a lesson to your kind. You are not equal. You are prey. We are hunters. Celebrate your weakness, it ends now. He sent it back to Earth. When Alara read it, her eyes narrowed. She didn't speak. She simply opened a file. Operation Sky Hammer. Recruitment was never a problem when blood was spilled. Earth had seen too many wars to forget how quickly people stood up when home was threatened. Across every continent, volunteers flooded in. Not for glory, not for revenge, for something deeper, justice. They didn't shout, they didn't cry. They trained, quiet, focused, ready. Among the recruits was a woman named Mira. Her brother had been on Epsilon 4. She wore his necklace under her armor every day. She didn't talk much. But during training, she never missed a shot. One soldier asked her, "Why are you here?" She replied, "Because I don't want them to do it again." To anyone, in space, Earth's secret weapon, the Duskfire-class battlecruiser, powered up for the first time. Its engines were nearly silent. Its weapons were hidden beneath the hull. It didn't look like a ship. It looked like a shadow in the stars. The fleet was ready. The mission was simple. Find the Varnock outpost responsible. Gather evidence. Make them understand the cost of their actions. But for now, the world still didn't know the truth. Back on Earth, Lyra still waited by the window with her toy spaceship. Her mother didn't have the heart to tell her. Not yet. She just smiled and said, "He's still out there, maybe on a long trip." But one night, Lyra whispered something that made her mother freeze. "I saw him in a dream," she said. "He said the bad ones came, but the stars are sending help." The mother nodded slowly, holding back tears. She didn't know that light years away the stars were sending help. And Earth had just begun to move. Because what the Varnock didn't understand was this: humans may argue, humans may break. But when you kill their friends, when you laugh over the graves of their loved ones, you awaken something dangerous. You awaken Earth. The silence around Epsilon 4 still stretched across space, like a wound that refused to heal. But Earth hadn't turned away. It had been watching, listening, waiting. The scouts' report had reached the heart of every leader. A colony filled with peaceful people was now nothing but cold ashes and memories. And Earth remembered. Lieutenant Aaron Vale's final transmission echoed in secret halls and secure rooms. No signs of life. The damage is beyond repair. Traces of non-human technology confirmed. The faces of those who heard it changed, not with fear, but with something deeper. Something quiet. Something steady. A promise. The operation moved forward, silent and careful like a deep breath before something big. Ships were fueled. Teams were formed. No press, no speeches, no noise. Earth wasn't preparing for a parade. It was answering a question no one had dared ask. The records pulled from the colony ruins told a story. Not just what happened, but how. The attack was planned. The colony's defenses had been taken out before they could react. Families never got a chance to run. The attackers knew where to strike, and they struck without warning. But they made one mistake. They left behind signs of pride. Among the shattered buildings carved into the walls were markings of the group that had done this. Their symbols weren't hidden. They wanted to be known. It wasn't just an action, it was a message, a challenge. That was the moment Earth stopped holding back. Operation Sky Hammer was no longer about finding out who was responsible. It was now about making sure it never happened again. Every expert, every strategist, every mind that could help was brought in. But they weren't planning destruction. They were planning clarity. Aaron Vale, still in orbit near Epsilon 4, received new orders. Stand by. Another ship was coming. One that would carry something more important than weapons. It would carry witnesses. People trained to see patterns, to track movements, to uncover truth. Inside the investigation team was a woman named Selene Kale. She wasn't military. She was a historian. Her job wasn't to fight. It was to understand. When she saw the first images from the colony, she said only one thing. This wasn't random. This was a message. She was right. As they explored the ruins together, Aaron and Selene uncovered more signs. Door panels melted in precise patterns. Data logs erased with expert timing. There had been preparation. This wasn't a loss of control. It was a performance. The attackers hadn't just come to take something. They came to be seen, and they left smiling. Earth didn't smile back. Back home, quiet changes were happening. New signals were being sent into deep space, not threats but observations. Warnings without words, the kind that didn't need to be spoken out loud. Earth was no longer asking questions. It was preparing answers. In training camps, recruits drilled without complaint. They weren't marching to music. They were preparing for silence, for cold, unknown places. Each of them carried something heavy inside, a memory, a name, a reason. No one joked, no one complained. They moved with purpose. One evening, while reviewing footage of the colony before it was lost, Selene paused on a single frame. A child's drawing, taped to a window. It showed a house, a field, and 2 stars in the sky. She stared at it for a long time. People lived here, she whispered. Real people. That night, she added something new to her notes. Not data, not code, just a sentence. We are not just responding. We are remembering. As Earth continued to move its pieces across the board, the ones responsible for the colony's fall had no idea what was coming. They had assumed silence meant fear. They didn't understand that Earth's silence was something else entirely. It was the sound of something rising, something focused, something unshaken, and soon it would arrive. The stars above Earth looked the same, calm and distant, but something beneath them had changed. The silence that once followed the loss of Epsilon 4 had become a quiet promise, one not spoken out loud, but understood by every person who had heard the final message from the colony. Earth wasn't rushing. It wasn't shouting, but it was moving. Far above the clouds, deep in orbit, a special fleet was coming together. These ships didn't shine or glow. Their surfaces were dark, designed to be unnoticed. Their names weren't broadcast. Their engines were almost silent. They didn't need to be seen. They needed to reach where they were going without being stopped. Each ship carried people with focus in their eyes. Not just soldiers, thinkers, planners, and experts from all across Earth. They didn't talk about payback. They talked about protection, about making sure that what happened on Epsilon 4 would never happen again. In the heart of the fleet sat a ship unlike any other. It had no windows, no bright markings, and no name painted on its side. But inside, everything was alive. Screens full of data, maps full of movements, and minds full of questions. One of those minds was Mira's. She had finished her training in record time. She didn't push others. She didn't try to lead. But when she walked into a room, people moved aside. They felt her reason, even if she didn't say it out loud. She had kept her brother's name close, hidden on a tag inside her collar. He had been on Epsilon 4, one of the voices that never came back. Now she sat with her team, listening to the mission briefing. "We are not here to cause fear," said the commander. "We are here to show the truth. We go forward not because we want to, but because we must." The destination was clear, a region of space close to the edge of Varnock territory. Intelligence had tracked small movements, signals in odd patterns. Most wouldn't notice. But Earth's watchers had been paying attention. The fleet moved through the dark, careful and slow. They didn't send messages. They didn't ask for entry. They slipped through the cold vacuum like wind between trees. Back on Earth, the public still didn't know. Life went on as normal, at least on the surface. But in small ways, people were changing. Some watched the stars more closely. Some looked at old pictures of family and wondered why the silence from the colony hadn't been broken yet. A few started to ask questions, and some already knew the answers. The fleet arrived near a system marked only with numbers, a forgotten place, not claimed on any official star map. But here, strange signals had been spotted. When the scanners were activated, what they saw confirmed every fear Earth had tried to bury. Structures in orbit, shaped unlike anything humans would ever build, patterns that didn't match trade or travel. This place wasn't for peace. Inside one of the ships, Selena Kale studied the readings. She had a gift for seeing patterns where others saw only noise, and what she saw now made her sit perfectly. Still, this isn't just an outpost, she said. This is a message post. They were proud of what they did. They're waiting for someone to notice. It wasn't a trap. It was a display. The kind you set up when you want others to understand who you are and what you're willing to do. The fleet remained hidden. They didn't rush in. They observed, recorded, collected. And with every passing minute, the pieces fell into place. The evidence was clear. The same energy patterns used at Epsilon 4 were here too. The same designs, the same markings. It all matched. Mira stared at the screen without blinking. So, this is where it began, she said softly. No one answered. There was nothing left to say. The data was sent back to Earth through secure channels. Every piece of it confirmed the same truth. The colony hadn't been lost by chance. It had been chosen, and the ones who did it wanted that message to travel far. What they didn't expect was the message Earth would send back. Not in words, not in noise, but in quiet action. Because sometimes the strongest answer comes not with sound, but with steps that cannot be undone. And now, those steps had already begun. The message from the deep sector had reached Earth. No news broadcast spoke of it. No public warning was given. But in hidden command rooms and quiet halls, people watched the data come in. Every scan, every signal, every detail told a single story. Earth had not imagined the loss of Epsilon 4. It had been chosen. And those responsible had left their symbols for others to see, as if proud of what they had done. But now Earth was watching them. The fleet, still hidden near the quiet system where the strange outpost floated, waited for the next signal. Every ship remained on standby, motionless in the void. They didn't light up the dark. They let the dark hide them. Inside one of the lead vessels, Mira stood near the main window. She could see the distant form of the strange station, its structure, sharp and quiet. Her reflection showed her face, steady, calm, but with something underneath it. She didn't speak much, but her thoughts were full. This wasn't just about defense anymore, this was about something older, something shared across all of humanity, the unshakable belief that every life held meaning, that those who tried to erase that meaning would be answered, not in anger but in purpose. Orders came through at last. The fleet was to move forward, slowly, carefully, no alarms, no sounds. The goal was not to take or break. The goal was to understand what else this place held, and who else had been listening. Selena Kyle, working beside the data crew, read through more logs. She had uncovered records showing that this outpost had received visitors from more than one species. Some stayed, some left, some never returned. Her voice was quiet, thoughtful. This place wasn't just built to watch. It was built to test reactions. And Earth's reaction was now unfolding. As the fleet reached the edges of the hidden system, more details became clear. There were storage units on the surface of a moon nearby. They carried objects from many worlds, banners, tools, even recordings. Most were symbols of peace, taken as if they were trophies. Among them, one item stood out. It was a small recording device. A personal one, used by colonists for sending family updates. The name on it matched a missing child from Epsilon 4. No one spoke as the device was opened. The last video played. A short clip of a young girl smiling into the camera, holding a handmade star in her hand. "I made this for the sky," she said, "so Daddy won't get lost coming home." The room fell silent. Mira walked away from the screen. She didn't want anyone to see her eyes, but her steps grew heavier, her pace more focused. She didn't need to explain what she felt. Everyone around her felt it too. Earth's message was forming, not with speeches but with movement. Ships began mapping the surrounding systems, quiet routes, known paths, places where the ones behind the outpost had traveled before. It wasn't about following them. It was about understanding how far they had reached and how much they believed they were untouchable. They had been wrong. Earth was not quick to act. But once it didn't stop halfway. It gathered every piece of evidence, every name, every pattern. It made no noise, but it made plans. And in the shadows of space, the ones who had once watched from afar began to notice something had changed. Earth wasn't turning back. The fleet did not bring fear. It brought understanding. It brought warning. It brought the weight of every name lost, every family waiting, every light that had been quietly dimmed and never spoken of again. And soon, in places where laughter had once echoed in pride, the silence would return, not empty but full of meaning, because Earth had arrived and it would not be forgotten again. Far beyond the quiet edge of known space, Earth's fleet moved through the dark like a whisper. The system they had discovered held no planets with life, no cities, no broadcasts, just metal and silence. But in that silence, Earth had found more than expected. They found purpose. Mira stood beside the mission captain watching a slow scan unfold. A deep space relay station had been discovered, quiet, cold, long abandoned by those who had built it. It looked broken at first, but once the signals were read carefully, it was clear. It wasn't broken at all. It had been left behind on purpose. Seleni's voice echoed through the room. "The design of this station is not for defense or communication. It's for observation." They were recording reactions, our reactions. A moment of stillness followed. "They wanted to know what we would do," Mira said. "And they assumed we would do nothing." The fleet's scanners uncovered more signs, energy trails, navigation logs, paths used by those who had once passed through this system. Most led nowhere. But one path, a long curved route through a region known as the Nebula Crest, was different. It had been used often, repeatedly. It wasn't a one-time journey. Someone, one or something, had returned here many times. The mission changed again. Half the fleet would stay behind to continue the study. The other half, led by Mira and Selene, would follow the route. The trail was cold, but the pattern was clear. And Earth was no longer just trying to understand what had happened. It was beginning to understand why. As they moved deeper into the Nebula Crest, the ships became quieter. Not by design, but by instinct. The dust clouds around them shimmered with old light like memories trapped in motion. Communication was kept to a minimum. Engines ran low. No one wanted to speak unless it was necessary. And then they found it. Station, hidden inside the nebula. Old, forgotten, but still active. Unlike the one before, this one was not empty. It carried a faint power signature, one that matched records found at Epsilon 4, a bridge between the attackers and their greater network. Inside the dark ship, Mira read the scans. "This isn't just a base, it's a storybook." Selene stepped forward, eyes locked on the display. "They're keeping records, not just of what they've done, but of how others responded, as if we're part of a study. What they found inside the data core confirmed everything. For years, others had also suffered in silence. small colonies, hidden groups, all of them different, from different worlds, but the pattern was the same. These attacks weren't about taking territory. They were about testing limits, pushing to see how far they could go before someone pushed back. Earth had now become the test subject that broke the pattern, and that made it dangerous. Mira knew it. So did Celine. That's why they didn't turn back. They marked the coordinates. They locked the data, and they left without leaving a trace. This mission wasn't about striking back. It was about preparing something stronger. Back on Earth, the leaders reviewed the transmissions in silence. Their faces told no stories, but their eyes did. This wasn't the end of a chapter. It was the beginning of a response that wouldn't be rushed, but wouldn't be stopped either. Every step forward was now part of a bigger path. Earth hadn't come this far for revenge. It had come for something more lasting, something that would make sure no colony would ever disappear into silence again somewhere beyond the nebula. Those who had once watched now realized they were being watched, and for the first time, they didn't know what would happen next, because Earth didn't announce what it was doing. It simply moved, and the stars began to take notice. The stars didn't blink. They only watched. In the silence between systems, Earth's fleet returned from the nebula crest, not with trophies, not with fanfare, but with understanding. The station they had discovered and the truths it held had changed everything. Now, Earth knew what it was dealing with. This wasn't about one colony. It was about a pattern. Quiet invasions, cold experiments, unseen observers. The group responsible wasn't large, but it was ancient, hidden behind shadows and silence. They had believed themselves untouchable, unseen, unstoppable, until Earth began to respond. Mira sat in the central briefing room listening as the data teams finalized their report. Their voice was calm, but their message carried weight. They chose colonies that wouldn't be missed, places far from trade, far from defense. They believed quiet places would stay quiet. She looked up at the screen, the final image, from the Epsilon 4 child's recorder, a drawing of a family under 2 stars. It was a simple picture, but now it meant everything. Celine stepped forward. She didn't need notes. She didn't need a script. Her voice was steady, her message clear. They thought no one would speak for the forgotten. They were wrong. The mission was not to strike, but to awaken. The recordings, the maps, the energy trails, all were gathered and sent to Earth's allies. Quietly, respectfully, no demands, no threats, only facts. The response was surprising. One by one, messages began to return. From far-off systems. From worlds Earth had barely spoken to before. They had their own stories, their own versions of Epsilon 4, forgotten names, quiet losses. All kept silent out of fear, or because no one had ever asked. Now someone had. Earth became something unexpected, not a commander but a listener. Not a leader by force but by action. And others followed. A signal network was formed, not for war, but for warning. A system to track patterns, to share information, to prevent silence from falling again. Mira watched it grow, not with pride, but with purpose. And far across the stars, the ones who had once tested the limits began to see something they hadn't expected. Unity, not with noise, not with fear, but with calm decisions, shared understanding, quiet strength. Their systems, once safe in the shadows, were no longer unseen. They had become a mirror, reflecting back everything they had done. And for the first time, they found no one to study, only people watching them, people who had learned, people who remembered. The fleet did not return to Earth for medals. They scattered, each ship continuing to map, to monitor, to connect. Epsilon 4 would not rise again, but what it stood for would never fade. Back on Earth, Mira visited a quiet memorial site. No statue, no flags, just a circle of names under open sky. The child's drawing had been placed in the center, framed, protected, honored. She stood, there for a long time, not to mourn, but to remind herself what had begun this journey. Not anger, not power, memory, and the quiet promise that no voice would ever be lost again, not if Earth had anything to say about it. The stars kept watching, but now they watched something new. They watched Earth rise, not in conquest, but in care. Not with fire, but with focus. And somewhere out there, the watchers who once believed silence was strength began to understand. Earth had been quiet, but it had never been asleep.